Hi, Seth. We're live on my show on LinkedIn.
Hey, Sandra, it's good to be here.
Yeah, how you been doing?
Doing really well. Doing really well. How's everything with you?
Really, really good. I like to start off every show with talking about why I picked the person to be on my show. And for those of you that don't know, I used to work with Seth Russ, so he's a previous colleague back when I was a financial advisor at Financial Serenity. I think you started a month or two before me. So most of our time overlapped with each other. And then even farther back, even though I didn't know you directly, you were also a Ramsey financial coach. I think way before me, though, way before me. I did the
Yeah,
training in 2021, and
yeah,
I might have seen some of your posts a little bit on Mighty Networks, but I think you predate me by quite a bit.
yeah. By 2 years, I started with my coaching stuff in 2019.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. You are much further back than me. So for a while, we only had a virtual relationship because you worked from home in North Carolina and I was working remote as a financial advisor here in Texas. And we finally did meet a couple of times through conferences, and you'd come over here to Texas and you had some Whataburger and you experienced the
I
Dallas Fort Worth
did,
suburbs.
did.
Yeah, but Seth is just such a good guy, and we've kept up a little bit over time. And even though I'm not financial advising anymore, I'm back to just financial coaching. It's good to catch up with him, and I'll let you introduce yourself.
Yeah. So my name is Seth Russ. Like Sandra said, I'm a financial planner with Financial Serenity, and the I guess the most important things about me is I'm a husband, I'm a father, will be a father to two come June. So we're super excited about that. But I'm a husband, a father, a financial planner, and an ordained minister. And so not necessarily in that order. Husband, father's in that order, but the other parts not necessarily. And that's pretty much me in a nutshell.
Yeah, and you also just recently got your CFP, right?
I did back in October. I finally finished all the licensing work to get credentialed and all that kind of stuff. So finally, after a multi-year process, was able to get my CFP.
Yeah, a lot of people, I don't think they understand how arduous that process is, um, and I remember you even passed it the first time when your
Hmm.
wife was pregnant with the first one.
Yep.
The
Yep.
even bigger accomplishment.
Yep.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that kind of leads us into some of the things I wanted to talk about in this conversation, because you were newer, younger father, and you went from, definitely being married to adding someone to your family, and now you're about to add another person to your family. I just think about all the impacts to your finances, also certainly your personal life, and probably also your perspective about business too. Has changed a bit throughout all that.
Yeah,
Yeah, and also
absolutely. And
quickly in such a short time frame too.
yes, absolutely. There's been a lot of growth over the past
Yeah.
few years.
Yeah. So what do you think was like maybe the biggest thing, especially when you're expecting with the first one? Because I know you're still trying to build business
Mhm.
and being
Yeah.
self-employed during that time too.
Yeah. I think my reaction mimicked most people's when they find out they're going to be a parent is, oh crap, I have to get my stuff together. Well, I'll keep it PG, but I was like, I've got to get my stuff together. And not just financially and all that kind of stuff. Me and my wife, if those are familiar with the babies, Ramsey baby steps, we were baby steps 4, 5, and 6, very healthy and all that kind of stuff. But still felt like I had to shore up some things financially. I feel like I need to do a lot better job in my work professionally. I feel like I had a lot to do just from like an emotional maturity standpoint and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
my initial reaction was, I feel very inadequate for what's about to happen. And so just over the next 8, 9 months until we had our first one, and then she turned 2 on Saturday. So she's just turned 2, and just growing, the learning, the lessons, the struggle over the past 2 years. And it's not been all struggle. It's been mostly good, but as all new parents know, there's a lot that comes with that first one. I can't speak to the second one yet. I'm not a father of two yet.
Yeah.
But I guess just the biggest thing is realizing that I don't have to have it all figured out. I don't have to have it all together, and that I can figure it out, kind of build the ship as we go, sort of thing.
Yeah. I mean, do you think anyone can ever truly be prepared before they have a kid, even if they're planning it and it happened exactly when they planned and wanted it? Yeah. See, I believe the same thing too. You can never truly prepare because you don't know what life is like on the other side. And I don't know what you think about this also. sometimes I'll get people asking me, I think it's men, honestly, to be honest. Men will ask this more than women. Am I financially ready to have a kid yet?
Yeah. Yeah, I get the same question. And the answer could be yes or no. Usually it's like no. You may have all the money in savings, great spending habits, all that kind of stuff. Yet your perspective on the world will just change on a dime the first time you hold your kid. And so you may think, well, I did have enough, but now I want to give this little kid everything, or I want to pay for their college. I want to buy their first car. And you're like, okay, maybe I'm not prepared. And,
Yeah.
and it's more of, well, you may have like the numbers to back it up. It's more of once you hold that little one for the first time, you start
Yes.
fantasizing and dreaming about all that you want to do. And that makes you feel, oh, I'm not as far along as I want to be yet, because now I want to do this. I want to do that. And the list just keeps growing and growing and growing. And I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing, but I feel like it's a common thing that parents have for their kids. I've never come across a parent who didn't want to set their kid up financially, who didn't want, maybe not like give them $1 million trust fund, but every
Yeah.
parent I know wants to give them a solid, what I call a launching pad into adulthood, whatever that looks like for them. And so it's usually a feeling of, I need to get my stuff together, I'm not prepared, versus reality, if that makes any
Right.
sense at
I
all.
think your why shifts because, you have that first shift when you get married and now it's not just you. Life is not just you. But
Mm-hmm.
now beyond just you and your wife and, maybe wanting a certain house or car, like a whole nother person. And
Yeah.
how do you think it's shifted maybe some of your money mindsets,
I
having
will
that first
say
kid or
that, yeah, so for me and my wife, we've had these conversations regularly. Like, our ideal lifestyle has actually downgraded quite a bit. Like, we don't care to have as nice of house. We don't care to have as nice of vehicles. We don't care to wear as nice of clothes, the material things. And so that's why I say our lifestyle's scaled down. But what's become more important to us over the past 2 years, and as we look to the future, are, you know, home on the nights and weekends, right? We're not out working, super late into the night, never seeing our kids. We have that flexibility in our schedule to be with them. Trips, travel, and in whether that's international travel or just here domestically in the U.S., just being intentional about exploring and taking them places that maybe we've been in our lifetime, or where we want to go and want to share that with them. So those two have been really important, but also we would rather sacrifice the stuff, the status, if it
yeah,
means that we have a more personal connection with our daughter and a stronger marriage. Like, that's more important. But we've started to value more the intangible stuff than the tangible stuff. But before kids, it was very much, we could only think about the tangible stuff. And it sounded good to have a more flexible schedule and all that
yeah,
kind of stuff, but it wasn't really something that was mega important to us. But we could see it was a little bit more concrete for us to think of a nicer house or a beach house, that having that second home
yeah,
and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, if we get that, it's great now, but that's not our goal of financial freedom anymore. That's not what our financial system is set up to achieve anymore. It's all about maximizing time with our kids now and creating
yeah.
legacy for the future.
Yeah. No, I totally agree. I wouldn't even say it's a downgrade. It's a shift in your goals and what you want. I
Yeah.
remember at one time when I was graduating from college, my biggest goal was to buy a Jaguar, which seems really ridiculous. So I drive like a Hyundai Elantra now. I've never really cared about nice cars, but that was like this big status thing. That was Dave Ramsey's thing too, right? He had that Jaguar, and even when he was going bankrupt, he still wanted to hold on to that Jaguar. And I laugh at that because I've never been a car person. I'm sure that was like a commercial or someone putting that in my head. That's what I wanted. Yeah, it shifts over time what's really important to you. And now you want to have these experiences and time with your children, and you want to show them and do things that, and be very intentional about it, right? You can't go to, I mean, you certainly can. You can take them to Disney World whenever you want. When they're 20, they might not want to care or want to go
Yeah.
as badly
Yeah.
with you. Yeah. Yeah. So what type of things are you thinking about for, how's it changed kind of your financial planning with the kids, and now you're going to have another one. I'm sure college, you're starting to think about college and things like that.
Yes. we definitely, here, how we've approached it is kind of reversing engineering, going out and at certain points.
Mhm.
So when she's 16 and wants that car, when she's 18 going off to college or graduating high school. We personally don't care if she goes to college. That's going to be a choice she wants to make. I'm 75% serious when I say this, and that I'm going to force my kids to be entrepreneurs in high school. And then they could be a little like a little online store. It can be go mow grass or sell lemonade at a lemonade stand. But just from the skills of starting a product or service, building it, fleshing it out, asking people to buy that product or service, getting the rejection from it, learning how to navigate that. And, I feel like there's so many life skills that are learned from entrepreneurship that I'm probably
That's
going to
unique.
make my kids to do some kind of entrepreneurship thing. If they don't like it, that's fine. It's not the point of this has to succeed so our family eats. Like, that's not going to be the point. It's going to be the point. Go get your butt kicked a little bit, learn some life lessons, and I promise you that when you get into whatever you truly want to do, you're going to be 10 times better at it. But so, setting them up for, have the space that we can help fund that venture, but also thinking more long-term of inheritance. Like, inheritance is something super important to me. My wife is less important for her, but I have a figure in mind that I want to leave all my children. And whether I hit the figure or not, we'll see. But I have a specific figure that's like a last I love you from dad that I want to give. Now, I want to be able to give to them every year in between in some kind of financial capacity, whether that's writing a check, buying that car, taking them on a big family vacation, that kind of stuff. So our perspective has shifted away from giving them the stuff, but just kind of preparing them, but I guess it's still kind of stuff, but less about like making sure they have a big house, the cool house to come and hang out at, make sure they have brand new cars. At 16, we don't care about that anymore. It's more about, are we setting them up adequately for the future? Are we creating an
Yeah.
impact and a legacy for them? Our system that we've created for our finances is very much set up so that, when she's an adult, she'll have a sum of money to start her life, but also
Yeah.
she'll have some skills and wisdom to handle that and steward that money well. And
That's
then up until,
valuable. Like your little,
yeah,
I call it Seth's MBA school that you're gonna
yeah,
put her through.
yeah,
That's your version of putting her through like a little MBA.
yeah,
You've thought about this through quite a bit. I think there are some
yeah,
people,
absolutely.
parents that have not even thought through like, am I gonna buy my kid a car when they're 16?
Hmm.
That's a big decision. Or am I gonna pay for their wedding? Like, what's really important for them to pay for college or wedding? Are they getting a first car? You even thought about this entrepreneur. Well, why do you think it's important for? I'm just curious. Why do you think it's important for them to experience being an entrepreneur so early? Because I know you briefly were like a W-2 employee person, and not for very long. So
Yep,
I know you're
yep.
very pro for being self-employed and having your own business. But why do you think that's an important skill?
Just going back to life skills that I was mentioning, right? The ability to actually, from start to finish, think of something, review it, and refine it. The willingness to get feedback from something, and it's never fun for someone to tell you something sucks. But that's where the growth happens, right? Whether you suck at something or your product or service sucks, like, you need to know that information so that you can refine it, and also to develop some of that mental fortitude that you just kind of need to be any
Yeah.
kind of impactful human being in life. It doesn't matter what career you have. Like, if you don't have mental strength, if you can't, a
Yes.
backbone, or so some people say, like, you're not going to make much impact. I'm intentionally using the word impact over success because I don't want people to equate that with like a high salary or high net worth. What I want our kids to know is that we want them to chase impact, not success. Success may come with impact,
Yeah.
but the impact is more important to us, and that's the value we want to pass on than the success. And I am intentionally trying to differentiate those two. But yeah,
No,
so
I
I think
love that.
entrepreneurship does a great job of teaching them that, while also giving them the creative outlet to explore something it's a passion project for them. And that's like the thing that me and my wife talked about. Like, if we do this, we're not going to mandate what they do. We're going to give them the freedom to choose anything. And we don't care what it is, as long as it's, legal and moral and that kind of stuff, right? They're not starting an OnlyFans account, right? But, if they want to, if our kid's a sneakerhead and they want to like flip shoes and all that kind of stuff, go for it.
Yeah.
If they want to do car detailing, go for it. They want to start an online school or online store, go for it, right? Like,
Yeah.
it's more about exploring their passions, their interests, learning the different aspects of business, because everything has a business aspect to it, even like teachers, right? And so they may find that they hate the financial stuff, but they love the creative stuff that happens in the marketing realm. And so they're now, for their future, they're able to go explore what they're more interested in. And so that's kind of the purpose of Brown It, is you give them some of that life skills while giving them a safe place to explore their passions, versus when they're 30 years old, they maybe have a wife or a spouse and kids of their own and a mortgage. It's a lot harder to be exploratory when you've got all these other commitments.
Right.
You don't have many commitments at 14, 15, 16 and on up, up until you graduate college. So give them that safe space to practice, to fail, to explore. And then hopefully that'll guide, do we need to pay for college? Do we not need to pay for college? And also in
That's your
college,
kid. I'm
what do they
joking.
want to study? I don't want my kids to be the people that are like their senior year. They're like, hey, Dad, I want to change my major and be in college for 3 more years. I'm probably going to be like, if you want to, I'll pay for 1 more year. And you got to figure the rest out. But like,
Yeah.
I don't want them to have life figured out. But I feel like it would make their life simpler to have at least an idea of what they like, right? And then they can
Mm.
start to explore some of the things that they like, and how do they make a living and create impact with what they like doing and what their gifts are and that kind of stuff.
No, I really love that, and how you talked about building resilience. And let's say they fail. And if you've ever heard Mark Cuban's story, he went around selling trash bags in his neighborhood. He went door to
I
door
have not
selling
heard this
trash
story.
bags. That was his first little teenage job. And, and I love how you talk about impact over income, because, success is normally associated with making a high salary or some job status or title. And I was actually talking to someone about you today with someone else, and saying how, yeah, the ministry thing is a thing of impact, but not always income, right? Or all this notoriety. It seemed like, mistakenly, people think financial advisors always make so much money. Not really, and not in the beginning. And it is very much a business building thing, and you want to make an impact in people's lives. And it's funny, you hear people get so upset about the 1% AUM. It's like, do you realize how much it takes to have a livable income of even just that 1% that people think is just like stealing from people, and how much work, and how you're talking about, you spend all these hours studying for the CFP, which is not terribly cheap, and to pass, and all the regulations and all that. Like, people aren't just doing it for the fun of it to manage other people's money, And I like how, you're very young and you've picked these careers that are definitely about impact, but yeah, that's kind of at the cost of making so much income all the time. And I think we were talking about this the other day also about, people want to start these passion businesses, and there's nothing wrong with entrepreneurship, and people want to do things they're very passionate about. But sometimes it just doesn't pay the bills. And I'm very honest about, I can do a passion business because I actually have a day job that pays the bills. If I didn't have any income coming in at all, I couldn't just count on just, my passion to help people with money is going to just pay for everything. So I like it where people don't have risk and they can try stuff out at different stages. And why not when your kids are young, or they're in their early teens, and they can kind of be that a little bit like a starving college student building a business and
Yeah,
seeing if it pans out. Yeah.
absolutely. Yeah,
They'll start another business.
exactly. Yeah. And they may decide, I absolutely hate all of this, and I know I don't want the pressure to be an entrepreneur. And that's A-okay with me,
Yes.
And so like it just, and whatever they want to do, they have some experience. They have, and real life practical experience too, like not your traditional internship experience. Like, I don't know what kind of internships you did, Sandra. My internships were not very
Copying
good.
papers.
I made presentations.
Yeah.
I
Yeah.
I did literally did the coffee thing a few times, where I just went and got coffee for people, and I was able to write down I had an internship. I didn't get any experience from it though. This will actually be experience for them. And whether that looks good on a college application or a job application, it's more about, it gives them the experience to know what they enjoy and what kind of legacy they want to live, what kind of impact they want to make. And so, yeah, that's That's our beliefs around it, our thoughts around it. I think it's very obvious that we're trying to chase impact over income. It's not that we want to forsake income, but I also want to make that super clear. I don't want to turn down a lot of income. I don't want to be a starving artist, but it is, we prioritize the impact, believing the income will come from it at some.
Oh, I love that. And you probably will pass down those values, encouraging that instead of like, you're so smart, let's go to medical school or whatever, or you need a certain job title and all that. So yeah, tell us a little bit about how you moved into this financial space and your financial journey and all that.
Yeah, so take everyone back to, I was 18. I don't remember the year. 18 years after 1996, whatever that was, 2014-ish. My first ever job was working on an industrial hog farm for my dad, and I had to clock in at 4 o'clock in the morning. I knew by 4:30 a.m. that same day, this is not what I want to do. My dad has spent over 30 years in that industry. My older brother has been there for like 12 years. I knew in 30 minutes, this isn't it. So that's what started me looking for, okay, what do I actually want to do with my life? And so, I go off to college, do some internships in college, get my degrees, that kind of stuff. Senior year of college, the end of my junior year of college, me and my wife get engaged. So I graduate after the fall semester my senior year. Graduated that little semester early because while I was dumb, and I'll admit I was not a very mature and bright individual at 21, I was also smart enough to know I can't live on love. That's a false notion. So I graduated early, got a job in an accounting department for a company, knowing nothing about accounting. And then I realized in about 6 months, I don't like accounting and I don't like this. And so about 6 months in, I realized, and what I was, as people who, if you've ever worked in an accounting office or anything like that, it's a lot of spreadsheets. There's not a lot of collaboration, especially if you're working for a corporation versus like an accounting firm or tax firm. But I was working for a corporation in their accounting department. There's not a lot of collaboration with anyone, and it's a whole lot of just data entry, spreadsheets, that kind of stuff. And I was absolutely miserable. I'm not a very social person, but I do like having conversations with people. I like to be able to tie what I do to having an impact. There's that word again. And so about 6 months in to that first job, I just started looking for other things. I knew I liked money. I knew that I was good at math. So I started looking in this space. Plus, during that 6 months, me and my wife got married. And literally the week after our honeymoon, I get an email from my mortgage provider and my student loan provider all in the same week. And I don't remember which one, but one of them sadistically said, "Congratulations, your first payment is due." And I just remember seeing that, congratulations. And I'm like, I feel like that's a slap to the face for your borrowers. So, but what was really bad about that time, I was starting to realize I don't like my job. I've just gotten into this new wife. I get these emails saying these bills are due and we don't make enough money to pay the bills. My wife had a job lined up. I hadn't started working yet, and it would be another 45 days before she would get that first paycheck. And then we knew that when she got her first paycheck, we would be okay. But it was that first 45 days of we don't have a whole lot of savings. What is going on?
Yeah.
I don't want to lose the house that I just bought. And so that's prompted, while looking for trying to figure out what I want to do with my career stuff, I also just simply Googled, what does the Bible say about money? And if anyone's ever heard of Dave Ramsey and knows anything about him, they should not be shocked that he was the first result. I didn't know who Dave Ramsey was. I'd heard the name, didn't know anything about him. So I was like, I'll click. And that started, I bought his book, Total Money Makeover. And in 6 months from that point, so a year after graduating college, 6 months of being married, we had paid off about $14,000 of student loan debt, which is all the debt we had. We had built our savings up to a 6-month emergency fund. And so we're getting into 2019, and I get an early inheritance from my granddad. Now, don't get he got lucky with inheritance. It was like $3,000-ish or something. Great gift. I am super appreciative of it. I'm super appreciative of it. It did not change my life. It did not. I could have some fun. I could do something cool with it. It was by no means setting me up, but I took that $3,000. I bought the training program, Ramsey's financial coach training program, a financial coach master training, I think is the name.
Oh,
So that I took that inheritance, bought that course, that training, and then launched my coaching practice March of 2019. And then I got into being a financial coach as part of going back to my disdain for my job. And this was an experiment. This is again, this is also why I want to encourage my kids to do entrepreneurship, because this was my experiment. Do I like talking with people about their money and helping them? And I did. I absolutely loved it, and I still love it. So 2019, I start helping people with their finances. 2021 rolls around, and I noticed that I'm doing all of what I call the hard work of getting people debt-free, getting people build up their emergency fund, having them establish the right mindsets and behaviors when it comes to money. And then I'm just handing them on a silver platter to a financial advisor to go invest their assets and help them build wealth. But I've already done the hard part, in my opinion, of getting the intangibles in place to go do that stuff. So all they really have to do is just set up another system, and they're good for life. And I was like, I'm not dumb. I mean, I'm not the smartest person in the world by no means.
Yeah.
What was that?
You kind of lose them at that point. That's the sad thing about coaching. You know, people cycle and then
Exactly.
they move on
That
to
was another thing.
advisement. They know the rest of their lives.
That was the other big driver. You got ahead of me. I was going to get there, Sandra. Yeah. But that's the other reason. I was like, I'm not dumb. I can do their job. Second, like you said, I was only working with people 6 months to a year. And then I had to hand them off. And I was like, well, dang, now I don't get to see the end of the story, selfishly. And so I was like, I want to continue being a part of these people's lives. And I know I can do their job. I mean, I'm not the smartest person in the room, but I'm not dumb either. I can figure this stuff out. And so Black Friday 2021, I had been praying about it, been talking about it with my wife, and decided I'm going to go get my licenses to be a financial advisor. Spent the rest of 2021, the first part of 2022, getting everything in place, getting my licenses. And then July 2022, launched with, again, your former boss, my current boss at Financial Serenity, as a financial planner, and have been a financial planner now for 2.5 years. And so that's how I got into the space and my journey in the advising space. But it stemmed from my personal struggles with money and how I felt when I finally got my money problems conquered, and also contentment in my job and wanting to have a greater impact directly in the lives of people.
Yeah. But see, almost it's a blessing. And it's a blessing in disguise that you experienced that super early. Because I think, like, about the people that there's nothing wrong with it. They start out in their career and they're so happy and they're so gung-ho. And then they start getting disenchanted maybe like a decade or so later, or like 8 years in. It's not all, but you kind of knew very early on, which I think is almost a gift, because it's knowing yourself, right? And just and definitely you're not afraid to add on and to do more. I'm sure you hear this from lots of people where they're like, well, don't you want more time with your wife, or more free time to yourself, or how can you juggle it all? You're just going to burn out.
Yeah. And that's a fair question and a fair concern. I will say I was very fortunate that I did discover that early, number one. Number two, talking about like, what about juggling all the other things? When I bought CMT, I was about to turn 23, right? So I'm still super young. I'm still baby-faced, didn't have a full beard, anything.
Focus and time and energy. Yeah. You know,
and I will say,
20.
I had a big advantage over most people in that my wife worked night shift. So I had 3 or 4 days a week, because my wife worked at a hospital and all that kind of stuff. So I had 3 or 4 days a week where I would get home from work. I have no kids. I have 2 dogs that stay outside. So it's not like they're like running around terrorizing me the whole time. And I've got 3 or 4 nights a week that I can do whatever I want. And so instead of just playing video games all night long, I decided to pivot that energy to financial coaching. And when I launched my practice, the nights that my wife was home, I didn't work. But when my wife was working, I had availability on my calendar, and that's when I would meet.
And you know what else?
I will say my situation was a little advantageous for the whole thing, and I get that. And I was fortunate in that way.
But also tell people, you can't be an entrepreneur unless you enjoy working and you work a lot. Sometimes people if I even imply to them, like, oh, maybe you should start a business, that I do all these things in the evening. I'm like, no, it's because you're so busy and you do so
Mhm.
much. Imagine if you applied some of that energy or time or effort, instead of just diddling around on Facebook or whatever, what if you were doing social media content, or you already like being on YouTube, right? Why not make content around, something where it promotes you in a business? So I think you have to have that work ethic and, that ability to juggle those things. Well, also, I mean, yeah, tell us a little bit about your journey in the ministry, because that's a whole nother thing you're doing too, on top of all these
Yeah.
things.
So it's funny you bring that up. Around the same time that I was praying about getting my securities license to be a financial advisor, people have been telling me, Seth, I think you should be a pastor. I think you're a future pastor. And I was like, absolutely not. So my dad is a pastor and became one when I was a freshman in high school. And there were all kinds of things around that situation that I felt like my dad becoming a pastor actually took my dad from me. And this stuff, like, I've talked to my dad about this and stuff, like, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm not like airing to the internet things I haven't said to him. But all I could think about was, prior to my dad becoming a pastor, my dad was my soccer coach, took me to all my practices, never missed a game. And soccer was my life growing up. It still is my biggest passion outside of my family. But he was the one, and my mom was super involved as well. I'm not trying to say she wasn't, but I felt like
Mhm.
that was kind of mine and my dad's thing, was soccer. And so then when my dad became a pastor, I played on Wednesday nights in high school, and I played a lot of road games weekend games on Sundays. When you're a pastor and you're preaching Wednesdays and Sundays, it's very hard to be at your kids' games. So my dad stopped being there at those things for me. And I felt, all I could think about was that if I become a pastor, I won't be there for my kids. But I was being asked to teach more at church, speak more at church, and all that kind of stuff. And people just tell me, I think you are called to be a pastor. And I was just adamant, no, I'm not.
Mhm.
But I was praying about that. I was like, well, a bunch of people are saying it, and there's not just my mom. Because, if your mom says it's like, whatever, mom, you just want me to be a pastor because you think I'll be a better kid. But my mom was actually one of the first ones. But I started praying about it. And same day, I was praying about both of those things. Black Friday, 2021, that's how I remember it. I got the call to ministry, and I got God said, go ahead and get your securities license. And so my ministry journey has followed my financial planning journey. And so this, in October, I got my CFP. In November, I became an ordained minister. It was a 3-year process to do that. So the same time I started my financial planning and the securities training and the CFP coursework, all that kind of stuff, I simultaneously was doing ministry training on the side. And so they've kind of so far have flowed hand in hand. And in November, I finished our denomination's process to become an ordained minister. And so that's what I am. Now, am I looking to be a pastor of a church right now? Absolutely not. Not with a second kid on the way and all that kind of stuff. I'm not. If God asks me to go be a pastor somewhere, I'll go do it. But I'm not like actively applying on Indeed for pastoral jobs or anything. I'm not doing that. It's just more of, you said go do it. I did it. If you want to call me to it at some point, I have all the stuff of it, all the training and stuff, so I can step in when you need to. It's very much like I went ahead, got it out the way. I have a feeling it'll be something later in life, not like super late, probably 30s or 40s, that I'll actually become a pastor somewhere in some capacity. And so it was more of just go ahead and doing the prep work for it.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because also, it's like kind of another passion career, right? And it sounds like your dad moved to it later in life also,
Right.
right? It was like
Yep.
definitely a second or whatever third career. Is it interesting,
Mhm.
like your feelings around that? Because you're a kid and how do you process it? And the same like how people have money stories, right? They're like, oh, because of this is why we don't have money, or this is why my parents argued.
Mhm.
And it's just interesting. And then you have to kind of rewire that where you're like, oh no, that wasn't, my dad abandoning me or, not being
Yep.
around anymore. Right.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. There was several $1,000s spent in therapy, several hours, several dozen hours spent in therapy about all this kind of stuff and some other things as well. Right. But yeah, it was, whereas some people go to a financial coach for their financial stuff.
Yeah.
I went and saw a therapist and part of the work I did in therapy was to reconfigure how I viewed my dad, ministry work in general, and all that kind of stuff.
Oh, but I love that because, yeah, if you didn't, you probably would have shied away from it. That it's when you truly learn more about yourself, right? And yeah, I can see it too because you're such a good speaker. And like we're talking about, you're a very heart-centered person too, even especially for someone that's younger, right? And how you desire to be around others and having that job where you're just all by yourself with the spreadsheets was not working out for you.
No, it wasn't.
Yeah. Yeah. It's one of the best parts I think about financial planning too. It's the money and the numbers, and you are kind of like a human calculator, but it's also all the emotions and everything
Yes.
else about money, people's dreams and their lives and
Yep.
what do they really want.
Yeah, absolutely. It's what the money does. It's not the money itself, but it's what the money does for people, and what it allows them to do, and the impact it creates in their life. That's what's so cool about it for me.
Mm. Wow. But you have so many things going on. So what do you think, or what can you tell us? What do you think the future holds for you?
Yeah, still financial planning, still being a dad and a husband, right? So my biggest focus is raising 2 kids. Hopefully we're done at 2 kids, but we'll see. um, but yeah, raising 2
Do you know
kids.
boy or girl? You know the
We
next
don't know
one?
yet. We don't yet. It's
Okay.
it's still a little early. We'll find out in February if it's a boy or girl. But yeah, so raising our 2 kids, having a beautiful and successful and healthy marriage, continuing to develop as a financial planner and building our practice, and continuing doing ministry work of some sort. Whether I'm not a pastor now, but I still do a lot at our local church and all that kind of stuff. So continuing to do that. So kind of continuing everything, but then at some point I would like to get back into soccer. I coached for a few years before I had Olivia, our oldest, at a local high school for just as an assistant, volunteer, and that kind of stuff. And I absolutely love it and I miss it. And so in some capacity, I want to get back
Oh,
to coaching soccer. Maybe that probably not as time intensive as coaching a high school was, but maybe a little rec team or something like that. And so that's the next thing I want to get into is however I can, when I can, I want to be able to go back into soccer, coach some kids and that kind of stuff. And but yeah, after that, just continuing to pursue the goals and dreams that me and my wife have. And that includes the 2026 World Cup here in America. We have our little sinking fund set for that. The only thing we've asked for Christmas is money to go towards our 2026 World Cup. We're just driving my mom and my mother-in-law insane because they were like, we want to get you a gift. I'm like, write me a check, put it in a box. But yeah, that's what we're looking forward to and what I'm trying to do.
that's great because you always have that long range, long term thinking about everything.
Yeah, very much. My wife has to pull me out of the future and bring me back to today, and she's very much the here and now person. I'm very much always thinking 10, 20, 30 years down the road.
Oh, that's interesting. Well, that's a good balance. But it also makes you a really good financial planner too, because you're
Mhm.
always thinking of the long term and that critical thinking. How do we get there? And reverse engineer everything back. Well, as we're ending, do you want to let people know where people can find you or how they can reach you somehow?
Yeah, right here on LinkedIn, I'm super active here, but you can also reach out Seth at financialserenity.co. It is .co, not .com. And I run a Facebook group called Biblical Retirement Planning, where we talk a little bit about money, we talk a little bit about theology and the Bible, and we also just talk about life, right? And so it's not just you're getting canned content every day. I try to mostly have conversations there. So I try to ask probing questions and respond with questions to your questions and that kind of stuff. So yeah, if you're interested in learning what the Bible has to say about money and how that applies to your life and to your retirement, come join us on Facebook. You can just search Biblical Retirement Planning in the search bar on Facebook, and it should be the first option.
Yeah, forgot to ask you about that because that's recent. But yeah, it's free, and you're bold. You do some AMAs on there. You do some, and you're letting people ask you questions. That's kind of scary. Okay. Well, thank you so much for being on.